Darrell Dickey.
Morning. Couple of tough acts to follow there, but I don't mind being third team.
All right, who's got questions?
Yes.
We'll go in the back to Tyler on KBTX.
Coach, I wanted to ask if you could talk individually about both Haynes Keene and Zach Calzada, just early on, what you've seen from them and what each of them bring to this team.
Well, we feel like we've got a good situation there. Both kids are very, very intelligent. They've been able to be on the sidelines and watch Kellen and get a little bit of playing time early in their career. Both of the kids are just great high character individuals. Their difference is a little bit, and they're kind of slight. They're both athletic. Haynes is probably one of the best athletes pure on the whole team, but Zach has also got some athletic ability of his own. Zach may be one of the best just throwers of the ball that I've worked with. When you watch him out warming up one-on-one, throwing routes and things like that, he's a very gifted thrower. Haynes also is a very gifted thrower. They're both very competitive. It's kind of a situation where they're unique in a lot of areas, but then they've got a couple of little differences. Zach is going to probably be a lot better in the pocket for his game. Haynes is going to be a guy that can really extend plays and probably keep the defense a little more honest or probably a little more scared with his ability to make plays with his feet. But, they've both been in our system. They understand all of the offense. We don't have to start the season off necessarily thinking we've got to taper way back or tone it way back from what we were doing with Kellen. Obviously, they're both still young and don't have a ton of playing experience, but we expect them to go out and compete, which is what they're doing in camp and is what we expect them to do this fall. And the one thing you got to guard with a new quarterback, in my opinion, is the feeling that they've got to make every play and everything's all on their shoulders. They have to do their job, make the plays that are there when they present themselves, execute and run the offense. That's where Kellen became a big-time quarterback. Is in his final year, he knew this offense as well as anybody in the building other than Jimbo. And those two, there would be plays that they were talking about between series that they were totally on the same page. And Kellen was knowing what to expect before the play was even called and what we were looking for. And that's what we hope these two young men will get to at some point. They're not there yet, but they are working in that direction. And we're pleased with where they're at so far, but we understand that, we're playing with a new quarterback.
Let's stay in the back and go to Mike Lucas from KAGS.
Hey, Coach, Mike Lucas, KAGS TV.
Yes, sir.
How unique of a talent is Anaya Smith? And when you have a guy that can create mismatches all across the field, how much more fun does that make your job as a offensive mind?
Well, the biggest thing about it, and it was kind of funny that you brought it up, when we played in the Texas Bowl 2 years ago is where this all started. And we had 6 scholarship running backs to begin the season, and going into the practices for that bowl game, we only had one, Isaiah Spiller. So we were faced with what are we going to do in case something happens to him, or what are we going to do if we want to line up in 2 backs? Well, so we asked Anaya during bowl practice to play some running back during that game. And as he got over there and started doing some things and felt comfortable as a staff, mostly Coach Fisher, he said, we can put him in the game and run our running back, 2-back running plays, and then without substituting, put him in the slot and run a 1-back offense and him be an effective receiver. And, that does a lot to a defensive coordinator, because you ask any of them in the country, they call their defenses based on the personnel that's in the game. And so when Anaya is in the game, they don't really know, okay, are they going to line up in a 2-back formation, or are they going to line up in a one-back formation? And the ability to do that gets us a lot of plays against the matchups or the defenses we want. I think you saw us last year when we had a good running game against Auburn, that some of the game we were lined up in two backs under center with Isaiah at fullback and Anaya at tailback, and so they've got their basic one-back defense out there, or their so-called nickel defense. So it's a unique weapon in that not only is he just doing that to present personnel problems and call problems for the defense, he can make plays from both spots. He's as good a running back as there is, as far as making people miss, running between the tackles, catching the ball out of the backfield, and then we can line him up in the slot, and he's a playmaker out there. So he's a great weapon to have. We're really glad he's on our team, and we're continuing to expand his role all the time.
Let's go on the left. We got Sam Kahn and then Mark,
Yes.
and then we'll go to Brent.
Sam Conn with The Athletic. Darrell, I'm curious, with Eli Stower's go over tight end, how did that come about, and how has he adjusted so far?
Well, so far it's been great. He is a very, very gifted athlete. And, one of the things that we've done, and again, mostly Coach Fisher, is we've been able to squeeze everything out of the talent that we have on this team. I think, our first year here, Cullen Gillespie's an example. He was a guy out there that did some really nice things on special teams, and I think he played some linebacker here, and Coach came in and said, we don't have a fullback in the program. That kid looks like he could do pretty well. He put him at fullback and special teams, and we got a lot of mileage out of that. I mean, he was a very productive player for us, catching some big fourth down plays against LSU and making some plays, and ended up getting drafted because of it. So, one of the things we do is we look at our team, and we're like, we don't want to have these talented guys that are over there watching. And Eli is a guy that we want to look at to see what he can do. He's a very, very intelligent young man. He's a very, very talented young man. He's got great hands, and so far, looking at him in 2 days of practice, we think that he can definitely help us at the tight end position, and you know how important that is in our offense, and possibly on special teams. Whether he ends up back in the quarterback mix, we'll take that as we unfold, as everything, as his development unfolds. But it's a pretty good situation right there. And again, that's what's exciting about this time of year. This is a brand new team. Last year doesn't count anymore. So all the pieces that we're putting together, defensively, special teams, and offensive-wise, we're kind of molding them to, we're a little less experienced at quarterback, so we have to take that into a little bit of consideration. We lost 4 really good players that started a bunch of games in the offensive line. We're taking that into consideration. But we have some real positives to that. Caleb Chapman's back, who and hopefully very close to 100%. And we've got some other people that have gotten experience and are returning. So this year's team is still a work in progress, and we've got our really strong points. We've got our points where we're hoping guys come through. Again, every year since I've done this, and this is year number 39, there's been a few players that you didn't know if you were going to be able to count on going into the season, and all of a sudden they emerge and they're really helping you. Devon Chain last year, as a freshman early on, he didn't get a ton of stuff going, but then mid-season and late in the season, all of a sudden he's another guy that added in to the process and became a playmaker for us. And so that's what's going on right now with this team. Who are the guys that are a little bit new that we can count on, and who are the guys that, have had great careers up to this point. We want them to continue to become even better players, and so we can become the best offensive team and the best overall team that we can. And Eli's, had a great attitude about going over there and working at some tight end at this time to see if he can get in a position to help the team. And so far, it looks like he can.
So we're on the left, Mark.
Okay. Hey, Mark.
Mark Passwaters with Rivals.
Yep.
I was going to ask you a little bit about the receivers that you had come in last year. You were talking about their development. was hoping you'd talk about a little bit more about that and, the positive things that you've seen, if any, so far from your receivers.
Our receiving core, we feel is probably as strong as it's been since we've been here, and we've got more guys that we think can impact the game. And so Coach Craig's done a wonderful job with those guys, assembling a group of people that we feel like instead of just having one guy that can take the top off of the defense, we've got a couple of guys. Caleb Chapman was able to do that for us last year before he got injured. Damon Demas is hopefully going to get healthy for the first time since he's been here and be able to jump in there. And we've got a young freshman named Yule Keith Brown that can absolutely run and can make plays with the ball in his hands. And the more guys you have that can impact the game like that, the tougher you are to defend. And, Jalen Preston, though, is a guy that's been around, had his best spring last year and is looking to contribute. Anaya obviously spends time out there. So, our receiving core is very strong, and we're hopefully going to be able to throw the ball down the field as good as, if not better than we have at any point since we've been here, because that's one of the things that, that we've worked to do is to go out and recruit some guys and to develop some guys that can, scare the defense, and we feel like we got them now.
Let's go in the middle to Brent, and we'll finish with Kirk.
Brent Swarneman, Houston Chronicle.
Yes, sir.
Would you mind comparing and contrasting your 1-2 punch at running back and Spiller and Auchain, and also the idea of having those guys back there to take the pressure off a new offensive line and a new quarterback as well, having that kind of talent?
There's no doubt. We still believe you've got to run the ball effectively to win. And you've got to be able to run it when everybody in the stadium and the other team knows you're going to run it. And that's where Isaiah has just been so strong for us, is that, not only is he a gifted guy out in space, but he can run the ball between the tackles. He's big enough and strong enough to hold up, because as Coach mentioned, this is a big boy league, and those guys get knocked around, they get beat up a little bit, and as strong and tough as Isaiah is, it's a tough load to carry week in and week out. So Devon, for a smaller guy, surprisingly, is very, very powerful. The long run he had in the Orange Bowl to kind of seal the win, two guys had great shots on him, and he bounced off both of them before he turned on that sprinter speed. So that 1-2 punch for us is going to be, it's going to help our quarterbacks as they develop, to be able to get the ball to some guys that can go make some plays. And so both of those guys possess the ability that sometimes if the play looks like it's maybe only going to gain a yard or two, might come out of there with a 4 or 5 yard gain, and that is a big difference. But to be able to have somebody, they both catch the ball out of the backfield extremely well. They're both really good at pass protection. Isaiah's the bigger guy. He's very durable, but for Devon, for his size, is not a guy that's going to get knocked off his feet very easily and is not going to get manhandled in pass protection, even though some of these bigger linebackers and defensive ends he's going to have to block. He did it last year, so we hope he can continue to improve on that. And yes, with our offensive line being a little young, the better those guys can see the creases and get through them where it doesn't take as long for them, that you don't have to hold your blocks as long. So, we feel very, very strong about the 1-2 punch we have, as you mentioned, with those two guys, but they've just got to go out and do it. And right now in practice, in 2 days, Isaiah is really dialed in. He's trying to improve some things that, even he feels like he can get better at. Devon is the same way. And, that's kind of the theme for us as a team, is just continue to get better day in and day out, and, continue to find out what we can do offensively to be as productive as possible.
We'll finish with Kirk here on the right.
Hey, Kirk.
Hi,
Yes, sir.
Kirk Bowles from the Austin American. There's depth on football teams, and I guess there's SEC depth. And just from listening to you, it sounds like y'all are really getting to that point where you have SEC depth.
Well, we feel like that. We've got to grow up in some areas, probably faster than we would have hoped to. We feel really good about Haynes King and Zach Calzada, but they haven't played a lot, so they're still in their developmental process. To be quite honest, I'm 62 years old, 61 years old. I'm still in my developmental process. You need to remain in that through your whole career. If you're going to continue to, play at any level with success. Tom Brady is still one of the most prepared guys to ever play this sport, and that's why he continues to be successful. So everybody's developing, but we have so many more guys that can play the position they're playing here on this football team. Coach Elko talked about our defense, and they're tremendous. They're talented. They're skilled, they're tough, they're physical. We go against them every day, and some days it's rough out there, but it makes us better. And then some days, we make some plays and it makes them better. So that's what we're hoping to do here is to create a competitive environment that both sides of the ball and in all areas we're making each other better. So that when you get out there on Saturday, it's not a shock as to what the other guy is capable of doing. And you have to have depth in this league. I think you have to have depth in any league because, it creates competition and, guys are going to get knocked around. They're going to get beat up. They're going to get hurt. And you've got to be able to withstand a few of those things throughout a 11, 12, 13 game season.
All right. Thank you, Coach.
Okay.